Ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. It says we're live.
We're live? Okay then. Let's see if this is doing it. Good evening. Welcome one and all to what is, and I now have absolute proof, episode 41 of Camera and Flask. And Jem, we're going to come to you in a minute and you can explain why I'm vindicated into my weekly kind of disputing of your number. But here we go. It's great to be back after missing a week last week. We're all over the place. Normally, it's me in the rural United Kingdom on a very pixely, awful connection. This week, that's where Jem is. So we're going to see how that all goes, see how that connection holds up. Caleb is looking in his new studio, looking amazing. We've got that beautiful bit of projection going on in the background. Everything's changed. So, gentlemen, good evening. Welcome. How are we?
I'm well, Jim. How are you doing over there? Are you lagged out of your mind?
I'm doing okay. I don't think I can actually hear you guys. Can you guys hear each other clearly?
Yes.
Well, that's good, because what's coming down my pipe, I'm listening to an episode of Doctor Who in these cans right now. So we'll see how that all goes. I think I can make it out. Yep.
Okay, well, this is interesting. So the other thing that I feel like I should explain to everybody is that we're using a new piece of software to live stream tonight. This is the first time, so there may be a few little technical gremlins. We'll see how things go. But let us know if you can't hear any of us, can't see any of us, there's anything funky going on. Let us know in the chat and we'll try and keep on top of it all. But are we good now, Jem, you think?
Yeah, I mean, as long as everybody else can hear and see you and Caleb, it doesn't really matter what I look and sound like. So I think we just carry on.
On the playback here.
That was a little present for you guys. There you go. Okay. Just as you said I look good, then the light went out. I'm going to go turn on the light. Okay. You guys are going to start with the drinking thing. I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, so you are in your place of work. Do you have a well-stocked fridge in there full of all kinds of amazing booze, and you're going to share with us something from that stockpile?
No, I didn't bring something. I was going to grab an all-day IPA, but what I did bring is I'll show off this water bottle a little bit for those who like to drink water, and let us know what you guys are drinking in the comments below. Wow, so many windows. I'm trying to find mine. There we go. So drinking a lot more water these days. It's good for you, I hear. So I got this the Alexa LF of water bottles. So we've got 64 ounces, flip top, handles, very comfortable to hold. Has these hooks that can go on like chain link fence if you're into doing sports, which I'm not. So that's what I'm going to be drinking tonight. How about yourself over there in purple Rainland?
Well, first of all, that is an amazing water bottle, and it looks like a milk urn. It's fantastic. This evening. I'm so tired. I went to bed a couple of hours ago, had an hour's sleep, and now feel worse for having done that, as I knew I would. However, so I'm going to drink my go-to picker-upper, which is gin, which has been in the freezer, which is why it's all frosty, and tonic. And this is no brand gin from Lidl, kind of like Aldi in your world. So this is very cheap gin with very cheap tonic, and we'll see how that goes. Now, Jem's back. Jem is in Scotland, so I'm expecting something special this week. What are we drinking, Jem?
I love the fact that I cannot hear anything that you guys are saying, but you said I'm in Scotland. Everybody else can hear me for some reason. It's the crappiest connection ever.
Like you can't. Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so let me just start off by saying that I don't really like Lefroy 10-year. In fact, it's probably my least favorite Islay whiskey that I've ever had.
Heartburn in a bottle?
Huh?
Heartburn in a bottle.
heartburn in the bottle. So I went to my local place here in Peebles, and I had a chat. And this is actually Lafroig, but it's called quarter cask, and it drinks more like a Lagavulin 16 or a Kulela 12,
Wow.
and it's brilliant. And it was like, what was it? It was like 38 pounds or 32 or 38 pounds. It's really, really good. He said it would be great, and it is. And it's smoky and it's sweet, and it doesn't have the medicine cabinet in it. So it's good stuff.
So it
So that's
doesn't
what I'm
taste
gonna
like
drink.
you peed on a burning log and then sucked on it.
Yeah, that's right. After a hospital blew up.
Delicious. Yeah. Okay.
That's amazing. I saw
That's
that
what
for sale this last week and wondered. So I'm interested to see how it goes.
I'm 100% bringing a fresh bottle of this home. So cheers to you guys. And
Cheers.
there we go.
Cheers.
Let me hit record on my camera so it actually stops doing that. Hold on.
Mm.
I don't know how you do this every week, Ben, at this time. Jeez Louise.
I don't know, man.
It's an hour later for me.
I know it is.
It's already 10 past midnight. I know, this is why I always appear to be just half asleep and not very with it. It's not the best time of day for me. But
Hey, David, I'm broadcasting at 320 by 240 just to keep that 90s internet video quality alive, just so you know.
Okay. So let's go back to episode 41 and why we are definitely on this now. Do we actually put a number on the description for this episode?
Yeah,
I'm not
38.
sure.
You're welcome.
You haven't put 38 on here, have you? Have you really put 38 on this episode number?
Hey, I'm
Actually,
on vacation. I could.
He didn't put anything down. Just Cameron last episode blank.
I'm on vacation. I'm on holiday. Leave me alone. Come on.
Okay, episode 41. 41. All right, so this week's topic, an interesting one, and I think we all know why we've gone for this, is 6K, the new 4K, because of this huge announcement from Blackmagic Design, kind of out of the blue. Was it back end of last week?
Mm-hmm.
So, a really interesting camera. I know, Caleb, you've done a video on it this week. For those of you who haven't seen the spec sheet, the thing looks pretty much the same at first glance as the 4K model with the Micro Four Thirds mount on. This is EF. So, Caleb, what else has changed?
Sensor, bigger sensor, Super 35. We're now also looking at the resolutions, and there's a whole bunch of them. So we've got 6K, 5.7K, 3.7K anamorphic, and then the 6K. There's two resolution options there, or aspect ratios, and then we have a 2.7K or 2.8K. Excuse me. And all those fun ones are Blackmagic RAW. One thing I left out of my video, and it's kind of a huge bummer, is the 4K options are ProRes only.
What?
So ProRes only if you're doing UHD or 4K, 4096, 2160. And I think HD as well. So if you want to play with the big boys and do RAW, you're talking 5.7K at the least if you want something 4K or higher. Isn't that
Interesting.
Insane?
Bizarre.
Can I ask you a question, Caleb?
Yes.
So 5.7K, is the resolution of the EVA 1.
Right.
Do we know where the sensor's coming from? Because I know it's a 6K camera, but it's interesting that they have a 5.7K resolution in there. Any feelings on that or any information?
I don't personally. I'm sure. I bet you actually a lot of these people in the comments. I know a couple people, Bart and others, have been keeping an eye on this stuff and know maybe more about the sensor stuff. So let us know, guys, if you've read anything. But yeah, I could see that being a thing. I'm not that familiar with those sensors in that the APS-C. I know the full frame thing has been recycled a billion times. But maybe are we looking at the same thing as like the Sony A64, 65, that 6K sensor? I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I don't know. Have either of you seen any reviews yet? I know Tamantos had put something up, but I got about 5 minutes in and then my phone rang, and I haven't got back to it, comparing directly the new camera and the old one and seeing color-wise how things are between the two. Have you seen anything?
No, but I did see that. I can't remember what color science version they've been on. Do you guys know? Because I saw on the spec sheet like is it version 3 they were talking about with this camera? Is that the same as the rest?
Yes, I believe that's the updated version.
Got it.
That they're using on the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K and I believe the 4K pocket camera. That's what you're saying, right, Caleb? If I'm hearing that right?
Yeah,
The
I can't remember what version. Bart would also have that, I'm sure. Bart's our residential Blackmagic expert.
Yeah, he said he doesn't know anything concrete about where the sensor came from. Okay.
So I have another question on all the different resolutions and the lower resolutions. Is that full sensor readout, or is there any binning going on with any of those?
All of them are windowed.
All of them are windowed?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, it gets a little hairy when you're getting into the weird aspect ratios, and we are waiting to see what those are going to be. Because when you're talking about like anamorphic, that could be who knows what. It's a 4:3. So it's in the manual. You can pull up the manual and it has it all written there, but they just have windowed, whatever that means. So usually that means it's the like native kind of like a 1:1.
Yeah.
So I know like one of the resolutions I'm most excited about is the 2.7K at 120. You can shoot 120 frames per second at 2.7, which sounds pretty awesome. In Blackmagic RAW, that is windowed. So I believe that's going to be a pretty hefty, what is that?
Like a 2 times crop.
Yeah, 2 times crop.
Yeah.
So, but I'm willing to give that up that's going to be amazing. RAW 120 at over HD resolution.
Yeah, that's super cool. Amazing.
Yeah. And I think the thing with that camera that interests me the most is the Blackmagic RAW. I think that format so exciting. It's great for me as a Canon shooter having the EF mount on there. That's exciting too, in the bigger sensor. And interestingly for Blackmagic, and I wonder if they're finally learning, that it was announced and it was shipping same day, which is kind of unheard of. So have either of you ordered one?
I pre-ordered one, but I'm really upset because I waited. I was like, I'm trying to buy a truck right now, and I'm trying to put, like buy it with cash as much as possible. So I've been like saving, my coffee can cash, and so I'm like, another camera. I was hoping I'd get a little more of a breather, before all this stuff starts hitting the fan. And so I waited 1 day or 24 hours, or maybe not even 24 hours, and then I'm like, I have to get one, to update the content I've done and everything. And so I pre-ordered one, and all these other YouTubers already have theirs from when they pre-ordered. But now I'm just sitting here waiting for that email from B&H saying, "Hey, it shipped." So who knows? But yes, people have them already. It's amazing. There may have only been 15, but they went out.
Yeah. And Jem?
No, I haven't. And I think with this is similar to the truck situation, but I've got an oldest going to college in the fall. So and I also am saving for the new Unicorn 16-inch MacBook Pro when it comes out. I actually was going to get the latest MacBook Pro when they just announced this last round a few months ago, and I decided that I was just going to hold out. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do camera-wise in the near future. I mean, I'm extremely happy with this XT3 for now. I'm really interested in looking at medium format and some of the stuff that Fuji's doing in that space. And I'm excited about the fact that we're starting to see a lot of cameras that are starting to go into this in between 4 and 8K. And, and that's the reason I thought, is 6K the new 4K? It doesn't give you quite the freedom that you have when you're shooting in 4K and you are editing in 1080, but it does give you a lot of leeway. So you're just not going to get as much. So, in order to get the same leeway that you have in post when you're working in 4K, you would actually have to acquire an 8K in terms of it being equivalent to 4K for 1080. But I think it's kind of exciting that we're starting to see this stuff. And obviously there's the real unicorn of them all, which is Komodo from Red. And that's going to be apparently a 6K camera. And they kind of started that whole trend a long, long time ago. So we'll see, and we'll see where companies. I'm really interested to see where Zcam comes into this whole thing in the long term, because I think that unlike Kinfinity, they're really starting to mold themselves a little bit, and I'm definitely looking at them a little bit more like a camera company. And man, if they could get a TED sim or something, and they could have a little bit of a US face to this company, I think Zcam could have opportunity to do well. But I think we should maybe have this discussion, maybe starting with Caleb, about the fact that one of the gotchas, and I watched his video about this 6K camera, is that you have to understand that in order to work with these new RAW formats, they are somewhat proprietary. So you're not just able to shoot on this new 6K Blackmagic camera and just pull that footage into Premiere Pro or to Final Cut. So I think that's important to have a conversation about. And the same with the Zcam, new RAW that they just announced.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I think Blackmagic, it all kind of comes out in the wash, because you have the higher resolutions, you have the like for instance, let's say you work with Final Cut, and you're not really into that using Premiere. To shoot on this camera and to shoot something more than you want raw, you're going to have to commit to those higher resolutions, because you can't shoot it at 4K and get raw. So you're looking at 5.7 or 6K. That means a lot more data, but at the same time, it's Blackmagic RAW. So depending on what your settings are going to be, you're going to be kind of counterbalancing that. But now you have to bring it into Resolve to spit out some kind of transformed or transcoded something. So your workflow is significantly increased when it comes to time, depending on your hardware as well. But they still have that Blackmagic RAW and those crazy compression rates. Whereas Zcam, has anyone, first of all, do they even have any RAW options right now, or is it all ProRes still?
So no, it's announced just in the last few
Right.
days.
Oh, there's the 6K one, but there's also their previous ones, right? Those don't
Yeah, I don't
offer any
think I
RAW
think
options.
I don't know. Maybe they have DNG RAW, but this is a
I know
new
as a company,
Zcam RAW.
they talk so much about specs, but it's like, Star Wars level distances from when this stuff actually is coming out. So that's hard to judge, but my guess is it's not going to be Blackmagic RAW, because they don't have that kind of background, is my guess. So you're probably looking at Cinema DNG, which is a lot more hairy at 6K compared to Blackmagic RAW.
Oh god, yeah.
So it's very interesting, but I think you guys are right. Like 6K, it makes sense. All these, like, this is a 6K camera that Gem and I are using right now. Can't speak to Ben and his EOS R there. I can't remember what the resolution is of that sensor though.
I can't remember either.
Yeah,
It's a 6K
So-
sensor, but we can't shoot 6K on these cameras.
right. So essentially,
Yeah.
it's just heat processors,
Yeah.
but the sensors are there for sure.
hmm
So yeah, it's very, very interesting. And I think 6K makes a lot of sense for a lot of stuff. And I have a question for you. This could be way rabbit hole-y, and just shut me off if so. But have you guys ever really used that 4K 1080 workflow you're talking about, where you have a shot at 4K and then a shot at 1080? I found that always looks so inconsistent if you're trying to get
does.
multiple angles.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does.
I would. I would say that I almost never do it. And I'm staying small, everybody, because of my crap connection, just so you know that. Um, what we do sometimes is we obviously reposition, and if we're shooting something like a wide cityscape, then we may at different points in the video use different portions of that. But I really shy away from using it in interviews. I'll do it for educational videos sometimes because I just only have the option of having a single camera and I need to do a punch in for something, and I'll cut in not to 200%, but I'll punch in so I can get a tighter shot, so I can go wide to tight and get out of something. Especially if I don't have a second camera on what I'm doing. But in general, I have an inherent problem with it because unless you're shooting, first of all, you are going to lose quality. But unless you're shooting on a white cyc or a green screen or a pure black background, the way optics work, if you're punching in 150 to 200%, you should be seeing a shallower depth of field, and you're not. And there's always something strange to me visually about punching into the same shot as a cut and then going in tighter. But I've done it. I just don't love it.
No, same. There have been jobs that I have done it. There's been stuff that I've used on the white cyc in the studio, just as you were saying. I have used it on that. And again, these kind of education videos, similar to what you're saying, that I've used them on. But on the whole, I find it a useful thing to be able to maybe take a 10% punch in, 15%, just tidy up a frame a little bit, that kind of stuff. I use it for that all the time, but certainly not punching right into that kind of 200%, that you're technically possible, that's technically possible. Because as you say, it never looks right. And if you're cutting back to a 4K frame that's then been output to 1080 to then the crop out of the middle of it, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look as sharp, I find.
Yep.
So
I do want to say something here because it's important, and I can answer this question. So Bart Johnson Production says, Caleb, does your truck have 4 wheels, or are you going to spend more for one with 6 wheels? So the answer to that is no. He was going to get a 6-wheel truck, but now that he's getting the Blackmagic 6K camera, he can only get a truck with 3 wheels.
Yes.
So you've seen those in the past. They have them in Europe a lot. They're pretty dodgy. Tradesmen.
Call that on Top Gear.
That's right. Exactly.
The Reliant Robin is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm going to just dive back to what we were talking about the other camera manufacturers and the formats that they're using.
Mm.
When Blackmagic RAW was announced and Grant was doing the explanation of how it all worked, he had his little building blocks and he was explaining how the thing was using the compression and how that was lossless. He was also talking about that they were having that open and that other manufacturers were going to be able to use that format. I seem to remember. Have any other camera manufacturers adopted Blackmagic RAW as a format? I don't think there have. There has been, has there?
Nope.
And if not, why not?
Yeah. Is it kind of similar to HD DVD versus Blu-ray format wars? Just trying to figure all that out.
I don't know. I don't, because the open formats that people can use is Blackmagic RAW and the ProRes RAW, I guess. So which manufacturers are we seeing, or do we think are going to adopt which of those? And why are they not doing it at the moment? Because if there's still people using Cinema DNG when there's those other 2 formats available, which are far superior, why is that still going on?
Well, I mean, my take on it is pretty broad. I mean, number one, I think it's brilliant that Blackmagic came out with this camera to begin with, because it's going to push more people into Resolve. And if that's the only place that you can work with the footage at that resolution, then that's fantastic for Blackmagic. But I'm a little... Everybody's still here, right? because on my okay. Everything's frozen on my end. But I'm a little sad, melancholy about how long it's taking for this sort of broader adoption of what's going on. It is getting to be very, very proprietary across the boards, and it doesn't seem like Blackmagic's making any effort to, or any of the other manufacturers are making the effort to work with Blackmagic to create plugins for this. I mean, the real way that Blackmagic RAW is going to take off is if Premiere Pro adopts it, and eventually Final Cut Pro. But that's going to be a little bit more difficult with ProRes RAW. So I feel like it's kind of been a hurry up and wait kind of thing. We've had seems like a lot of false starts, wouldn't you say, Caleb, with this whole RAW thing? It's not that these things don't exist. It's just they're inside of their own ecosystems.
Yeah, it's well, first, I think just a quick thing about Blackmagic RAW. I think there is a plugin right now, not from Adobe, but somebody figured out how you can do that. So you can work with Blackmagic RAW in Premiere at this point.
Okay.
Final Cut, though, man, that's going to be that kind of hardware epicness on an Apple machine with Final Cut, and if Blackmagic RAW works, like a little plugin like the red one, that'd be amazing.
It would be.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Bart's just said in the comments that it was an open format for editing. This is Blackmagic RAW, not for encoding. So Blackmagic is holding on to the ability to record the format, but put the SDK out there for editing it for any company to use. So that's interesting, and that explains why we're not seeing it in cameras. But then it's also I don't know how many months it's been since that was released, and that if other software packages are still not officially supporting it. Without the use of external or third-party plugins to make that work. That's interesting as to why that's not happening yet. And there's something about the way that Resolve, particularly compared to Premiere, handles a system's resources. Again, in the announcement, they've got this new system check, which only works for Mac at the moment, which will kind of analyze your system. So the processor, the CPU, the GPU, you'll go through all of that and work out what sort of performance you're going to get for editing Blackmagic RAW on that machine. So you can work out what kind of frame rates you're going to be able to be getting each of the compression levels at 6K, at 4K, whatever it is. So I wonder if that Resolve works in a similar way in that it analyzes your system and assigns resources much better than, Premiere is shocking. The same footage on my machine plays back perfectly in Resolve. I can be color grading it in real time with it playing back at full quality as I'm grading, whereas Premiere just stutters and crashes, and in some cases takes 30 minutes to even open a project file that's got that kind of media in it on the same machine that was more or less spec'd to run Premiere as quickly as possible. So that's kind of interesting, and I wonder if there's something to do with that as to why it's not been adopted by the other NLEs yet, because of that, how they are utilizing the resources of the system, of that computer.
Yeah, it's hard to say, and I wonder what's happening with all of these conversations behind closed doors. Because obviously everybody wants their format, and Atomos want ProRes RAW to be the winner. They clearly don't want Blackmagic RAW to be the winner, right? So it's a really strange space right now that is really exciting to me, but at the same time, it's it's just sort of like, how are you supposed to decide what your long-term workflow is going to be? It's pretty easy to make a decision about something like ProRes, but now you're looking at least two, ProRes RAW and Blackmagic RAW, and like, which one do you start working on your projects in? It seems to be very camera or recorder specific, which will dictate that at this point. And then with Zcam RAW, you're going to have to run it through their own thing to kind of work with it. And I think that that's going to be a clunky workflow if it doesn't get a plugin for NLEs.
Yeah. Yeah,
So at this point, the